welcome back to the Salt&Light podcast. We're excited to be together. It's always a good time being with you guys. I've heard good feedback, people listening back in. Had a couple weeks. The summer, really, I found the summer more challenging schedule-wise for us. Then once we get back into the swing of things, I think it's a little easier. But
yeah,
we came
busy
ready.
summer.
We got stuff to say. We're almost bubbling.
Yeah.
Would you say?
We're
So
frothing.
I'll have three things.
Frothing.
So I don't want to forget, right? So we have offenses,
Yep.
stingers, and oil.
Yep.
All right, those are the three
Wow.
things that
Offenses,
I want to bring
stingers,
up.
and oil.
So we were
Yeah.
talking about people being offended by, well, kind of in the church environment, by the way people say things, perhaps.
Right, right.
We're saying that. So
It's complicated, isn't it?
I had friends of mine. So one of them, Jim and Laura, and he was my pal since about fifth grade.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say he's my best friend because I think that's thrown around too much.
Yeah.
Right? You know, don't you think so?
It is thrown around quite a lot.
And yeah, so if you said that Jake was your best friend, I'd say, well, what am I? You know, chopped liver?
Sure.
That kind of thing.
It's
So
offensive to everybody else.
let's just not do that. So we were in Kennebunkport.
Yeah.
And we're looking for somewhere to eat, and I'm always a problem lately to find somewhere to eat because of my condition.
Which is celiac.
Yeah.
Not celiac, no, just gluten.
Gluten intolerance.
Gluten blimp condition. Yeah, if I do that,
You turn into a blimp. You just
it's
inflate.
It's no good.
Yeah.
Something new. Yeah.
I just thought of that girl from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, yeah.
That turns into a
blueberry girl.
blueberry.
She just
Yeah.
stepped up, yeah. So we were in there, and it was there's some kind of hotty-toddy type places in there. So we go in, and there's this, maybe he's hoping he's not listening. So we go in there, we're kind of say, hey, can we take a look at the menu just to see what's in there? And so the host is this tight-panted fellow with a handlebar mustache. So he hands us.
You sure do paint a picture, Kurt.
He hands us a menu, and we're kind of looking at it. And so other people come in, and he says, could you just please stand over there while you look at the menu?
Wow. Pushing you to the
way
side,
he
huh?
did it, we said, no, we're not impressed by that.
Yeah.
So we kind of walk out, which, I have to get over that, right?
Right. Yeah.
But
What do you think
but
would
hey,
have been?
we went
What
and ate
would
at-
have been the right way to
we ate
handle
at
that
the
situation?
fish shack or whatever we were anyhow. What would be the right way?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, would you mind just coming over here for a second? But he was
Yeah.
kind of harried, and that
Yeah.
this was the most important thing in his life. That to
just
make
stand
sure
over
that
there
the
while
things
people,
that-
the important guests come in.
Yes.
Who take the seat of
that
honor.
was interesting. So, likewise, in potential, I guess churches, you get hurt the most because you have the highest expectations. Would that be a partially true thought?
Oh, we have the highest expectation in some ways, but it's challenging because it's not an expectation that should be imposed on people in the church. If you were to read the Bible, you know what I mean? And I didn't mean that to be funny or sarcastic.
You're my handlebar mustache guy right now.
You would just read the Bible.
If you were educated at all about the things of God, this wouldn't be an issue.
If you've ever brushed up against Jesus in the mall or something, you would know.
By which I mean, the Bible is just filled with the brokenness and sinfulness and fallen nature of mankind, and how we just fail to live up to expectations over and over and over again. And the only person who could live up to the expectation was Jesus. And so if your anthropology, your view of people is based off of what the Bible says, you're pretty much expecting just about every single person except for Jesus is going to let you down.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
but
that
then
fair?
the reality is Jesus was perfect and handled everything perfectly, and yet he offended people to the point that they murdered him.
Yeah, what do you say to
Right.
that?
So it's like, geez, the problem isn't always in
Well, that's proving the point, right?
The person being quote unquote offensive. Sometimes it's the heart of the person receiving it. That's the problem, because they're upset about the wrong things, or sensitive about the wrong things,
Right.
or just have bad expectations. And I think even a lot of times, I feel like I've shared this a ton in devotionals lately that I've led, or huddles that I've led, or whatever, about how I cast humanistic responses and emotions on God. I think I've even talked about that here. And I think God's showing me how I do that a lot, where
Right.
I expect him to respond a certain way to something because that's how I'd respond, or that's how
Right.
people would respond. And we get it so backwards, where we impose perfection, God's perfection expectations on humans, and then we put human expectations on God, and both are kind of like backwards a little bit.
And I don't think we're trying to say just deal with it either right now, right? Like, because there are injustices and there are people who abuse their positions of authority and power, and there should be accountability for that. I think we all agree with that.
Oh, yeah.
And I
No,
just want to
that's not
say
really
that
what
because
we're
I think
talking about.
sometimes people can hear even what we're talking about as three pastors here at the church going like, well, yeah, like we're going to break your expectations. Like we're sinful, we're human, or fallen. And then sometimes people almost just take that as a license to just be jerks and not be held accountable or to do whatever they want. And that's, we don't want to say that on the other side of it.
It's interesting as you say that, that we actually anthropomorphize God. We give him human characteristics, whereas he gave us godly characteristics that we set aside.
Yep.
And so in 2 Corinthians, it says we no longer look at people from a human point of view, is what we're saying. We have to move away from that because that's a tendency. Connecting to that, if we could move on to oil, but we won't forget Stinger.
No.
So I was listening to a Remnant Radio podcast about curses, and there's this prophetess woman that they were kind of reviewing, and she had, in my mind, a little bit of a lot of an off way of thinking about. So she would learn from the pagans about the best way to defend yourself against the enemy, Satan and such, which is kind of a backwards way. We should get to know
She's
God.
reverse engineering it.
Something like that, yeah.
It's almost like those professors of the dark arts or whatever in like Harry Potter. Oh, wait, I shouldn't talk about that. I mean, delete all that.
Chronicles of Narnia.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
The three lads on Remnant Radio, which we ought to hook up with them, right? Do a 3-on-3 podcast.
They would,
that would be great.
Just chomping at the bit
Yeah.
to meet with us.
They'd be pretty lucky. I think they'd be pretty lucky to meet with us, though.
And so what she was doing was giving these warnings about these seasonal pagan rituals that curses will then be brought out on Christians, like in late August and October and whatever. She started naming them off as though we now have to be hypersensitive during this particular time because they're going to do that. And I forget what
like a seasonal cold,
something like that.
Yeah.
There was a phrase that they used. I can't remember what it was. Something about basically always being ready rather than kind of preparing it. So it made me think about the parable of the lamps with the gals and the oil. Matthew 25. And so I wanted to hear both of your takes on that, and then I'm going to tell you the right way
answer
to do it. Yeah. So
Jake, you go first.
You got to go first.
My take on Matthew 25.
Yeah, though that parable, because it might lead
okay.
into the parable of the talents as well.
Oh, okay.
I think a little bit, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think...
we're talking about the oil. Explain the parables first, folks.
So
most of them
hopefully he knows it. Yeah, putting him on the spot here. Yeah, explain the parable, scribe.
See if Jake read the Bible.
You know it.
So the parable at an obvious glance, because I think the more and more I've been reading and the more and more we study the parables in groups, it's like, man, they're so multifaceted. So there's an obvious teaching to it, but then there's all these nuanced teachings where I think that's one of the amazing things about the Word of God, that we shouldn't really forget about, that it's alive and active. So it teaches and it continues to teach in so many situations. But I think the obvious teaching of that parable is it's talking about a readiness for Christ's return, that we wouldn't be going about our business forgetting that he's coming, that we'd be diligent to be ready. And he talks about these 10 virgins and how they're waiting for their bridegroom to come. And so it's they've been waiting all day. They have lamps and oil. And so in the time at the time that they were alive, you would need all oil in your lamps to because we don't even use that anymore. People would be like, well, where's their flashlight at? So you need oil in your lamps for it to burn a long time. And so they talk about how night comes, because the day has gone by, now there's night, and so they're waiting for the bridegroom, and he comes in the middle of the night. And so if I were ready to go, they have their oil, and then the others say, well, we need to go and get oil. We don't have oil ready, so could you wait for us, basically?
Right.
And he says, no, you've been
Or
foolish.
even give us some of yours.
Or give us some of your own. They say, no, if we
No
give you some
way.
of ours, we're going to have
Yeah.
enough. And so it just talks about this readiness to be prepared.
Yeah. So what's your take on it then?
I mean, so my take would be the obvious that we would not be kind of diligent, or we wouldn't be like lackadaisical to go about our business and not be expecting. Because I think you behave, well, behave is probably a bad word for it, but you interact with God and you interact with the world in a different way if you expect that we're close to the end. And I think that's kind of why God allows us to feel that the end is close all the time. So like the disciples after Jesus left, they thought the end was coming in their lifetime. And then pretty much every Christian's lifetime since, we've always believed we're in the end. And I think that's actually a healthy thing because it keeps us aware, but we shouldn't necessarily need that. We shouldn't need it to be prepared. We should be out of a love and an eager anticipation, waiting for Jesus. But it's sometimes hard because we get distracted.
So when I read Matthew 25 in general,
Are you cheating right now?
I was just kind of looking at it a little bit. Yeah. Can I pull up my Bible? So it's kind of to me like the opposite and scary passage of what Matthew 7 is, right? Because on Matthew 7, when they're saying, Lord, Lord, we did all these things in your name. And then Jesus says, well, away from me, I never knew you. So there's like something they're missing. They're performing, but they don't have a relationship with Jesus. The Matthew 25 is like the opposite end of the pendulum for me, of where it seems like Jesus is grading the criteria of us being his followers on our performance in some ways, from plain reading of the text, because you have like the virgins with the oil. So there's 10 virgins, 5 of them have enough oil to last the whole night and wait for the bridegroom, who's Jesus. And then 5 have to go into town. And then when they come back, they're already in the party and they're like knocking on the door. And then the bridegroom says, go away. I never knew you. Right. And then he says, so be watchful for the hour of the Son of Man's return, or something like that. And then he goes on to the parable of the talents, and then the parable of the sheep and the goats. And then when Jesus is judging the sheep and the goats, he's judging them based off of, I was naked and you gave me
think
clothes.
Sheep and goats is a parable?
Well, it's like the least like a parable, but it has like parable-like language. It seems like a real judgment scene. It's like kind of like, this is what it's going to be like. But he closes all of them out. So he's like, I was in jail and you visited me. I was thirsty and you gave me water. And they're like, when was that? And he's like, whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me. And then, but whenever he judges people, he says, you didn't know me. Or you didn't see me when I was there, basically. Like you didn't know who I really am. And so that seems to be the big component of these 3 parables. And this may not be where you're going, Kurt, of people are living a lifestyle that is not in alignment with God's will for them. And like not in preparation for Christ's return because they don't really know Jesus. And so it's almost like they're self-deceived, it seems like. And so because they don't know Jesus truly, they're not in real relationship with him, their lifestyle's not reflecting it. And so they're not ready. They're not living a holy lifestyle. They're going back into town to try to get more oil. They're wasting their talents and bearing it because they're afraid of what the master's going to say. And they're not loving and serving the least of these. That's not the criteria of our salvation, but we'll do those things if we truly know him, right? I think that's the point of Matthew 25 that I kind of get out of it. But
do you think
I don't know if that's where you're going with any of what you're saying, because you're talking about curses and stuff.
I just go along with what the Bible means.
Are you going to tell us what you believe the oil represents?
Well, I don't know. That might be part of. So that's why it's interesting, because that parable has lots of interpretations to it from different people. But there is an element of it that, so some would say that the oil represents the Holy Spirit.
Right.
And
that's
so,
good,
but I like to mix everything that we've said here, because the knowing of Jesus only comes through the Holy Spirit in us. And so one of the things that just keeps coming to my mind in that is when they come down from Mount Transfiguration, the young fellow's throwing himself in the fire. They can't get this demon out of him, but they come to ask Jesus, why couldn't we do it? And he said, this kind only comes out through prayer. And so the phrase in Christendom quite often is, are you prayed up? Which is similar to what this prophetess woman was sort of saying. And to me, that's not relational. That's like, oh, I'm getting supplies for when I have to go down in my bunker or something like that, rather than this constant engagement that we get to have with Jesus, which takes away the Matthew 7 fear from us.
Yeah.
Because that's what we have to. And I think more people should look at that verse, those two verses, and say, I just want to know him, because it's not important that I perform for him. And out of knowing him, our performance will come. And that's kind of hard because when we look at it that way, we're looking at things from a merely human point of view. And he looks at it differently.
Right.
And so I just look at that as well, that the 5 virgins they had oil because they always have oil. The other ones, I would say, typically they're just running on empty, as Jackson Brown would say.
And I kind of almost look at it a little like the Matthew, I think it's Luke 14, when Jesus says, if you want to follow me, count up the cost of discipleship, where he gives this example of a guy who sets out to build a tower and he only has half the supplies he needs, but he doesn't realize that, and he tries to build the tower and then it's halfway done, and now he's the laughing stock of town because he didn't really know like the amount of supplies he really needed to build the true tower. And I think like in our relationship with Jesus, we sometimes have like this idea of what it means to commit to him that's not really based on what he says, and grounded in the truth of his word. And so we set out to follow him, but then we don't have the supply, so to speak, to take us through the whole journey. And we kind of like, we fizzle out or we fall away or whatever you want to call it. But I would say if that happens, it's because it wasn't really based on a true relationship with him in the first place. It was based off of kind of a conception you had of what it meant to follow him. And so there's like kind of a self-deception that takes place there. Go on.
We'll bring it into the parable of the talents, which just follows that one. The fellow who got the 5 and the 3 or 2, whichever, if you look at the Luke one, those are just the way they were. So the whole time they've been working for this guy, I believe they've established that same level of, I don't want to call it performance, but out of faithfulness, I guess, loyalty, I guess, that he knew when he gave those talents, that money to those people, this is what he was going to get out of them. And the one dude who decided to bury it in the ground, I'm sure that wasn't a new habit of his. He was probably going in that way at the same time. So we have, if you look at all 3 of those, then we have the oil, we have a group of people who continue to be faithful, some that aren't. Then you go to the parable of the talents, you have people again that walk in faithfulness, and then you have the sheep and the goats. And the first 2 are to me really prescriptive. Hey, this is what you want to have your life represent. The last one, then I would suggest it might have tendencies of a parable, but it's actually prophetic that says this is what's going to happen. That some of you guys haven't been faithful, and this is what it looks like if you don't fulfill those first 2. And this is what it looks like if you do fulfill it. And so it's not something, I think we go backwards when we look at the sheep and the goats.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to do more for one of the least of these then. And then
Right.
I'm going to be in the right place. No, we got to be right with him, and then those things will take place out of that. I think the other way is a human point of view again.
Yeah. Well, I think too, so everybody in each of these parables feels like they have a relationship with Jesus. So those virgins would be waiting for the bridegroom there unless they thought they knew who he was. But they had a faulty understanding of him. And so he came later than they expected to the party, and so they're in town because they didn't have the supplies needed.
So almost like they didn't know him either, right?
Well, they didn't know him. They knew of him, but they didn't know him.
Right?
And I think that's what the parables are getting
people
at.
who show up late to meetings,
right?
And we know they're going to show up late to meetings.
100%. They didn't know his character. They didn't have a relationship with him in a way that the other 5 had, because they were like, no, we have the extra oil because we know his timeline's not our timeline, right? Yeah. And like, how many of us, even as Christians, feel that way, where it's like you get disappointed by something that happens. And I mean, even just look at the story of Joseph. I bring it up a lot, but it's like, imagine if Joseph's timeline of receiving those dreams, he knows that he's going to be put in a place of prominence. Imagine if he lost faith as soon as he got put in the pit or put into slavery for 2 years, or in prison for 2 years. I mean, he could have been disappointed, been like, you know what, God, I give up on you. Like this isn't working for me. But he stayed faithful to God through it all because he knew God's character, and he knew God's timeline's not my timeline. And so I'm going to stay obedient to him because God's always going to be faithful to me. Yeah. And so I think like for us, it's a similar lesson too. It's like, do we really understand the character of God and the character of Jesus? And is that who we're committed to? Or is it to some kind of version of him that we've created that we think he should operate in this way? And then the moment he doesn't, we're disappointed. We're like, I'm out of this, you know?
Yeah, when you guys were talking, it made me think of something that I've heard a lot of times from people who reject God. And this like speaks way more to like relational and like just a way of being, like you said about the guys with the talents. Like that's the way that they were. The owner knew when he gave them that they were going to act a certain way with the talents because that's the way that they were. Same with the virgins who had the oil. They always had oil. Like you said, it's a way of being versus, they made the wrong mistake. Because I think, so the thing that a lot of people who reject God will say is, they'll say like, well, I refuse to believe in a God who, just because I made the wrong decision about whether he's real or not, is going to punish me for eternity. So they boil all of their distance from God down to one decision, and if they mess it up, God's going to punish them eternally. Right. And I can see how you might think that, but it's not that way. It's not like, you flipped the coin and you saw the fork in the road and you made the wrong choice unknowingly, and now God's going to punish you forever and ever and ever. It's a relational choice. It's an existence. Like, I think God judges us based on what we know and understand, knowing that we do understand enough to know him or not. And so I think like when we talk about this, it's way more of like, we know it's been written on our hearts. There's an understanding, and it's an active rejection of him for our own selfishness that causes us to be like broken off from him. It's not this, I think it's really unhealthy, and it's a miss to think of it like, it goes back to like what we talked about maybe last week about the prenup thing. Like, It's not transactional. It's not like, I do this and then God gives me eternal life. That's how it goes. It's a knowing. It's like what you said all about Matthew 7. It's this very much relational, and all the fruit, all the outcome is secondary. It's just impossible. We just constantly find ourselves focusing on the actions piece because I think maybe our world's transactional or whatever, and that's how we think of God. And it's that same putting human characteristics and emotions on God, because our world is transactional. Like even in dating relationships, whatever, if you do X, Y, and Z, they're not going to want to be with you, or they're going to divorce you, or if like you're at a job and you don't perform X, Y, and Z, you're going to get fired or you're going to get a promotion. Everything is transactional. And so then we put that on God and say, if I do this, and this, I get my reward. Right. And then he can leave me alone. It's like, well, that's, no, that's, it's all a miss. That's all backwards. Which is like spirit. It's how the spirit's different than the flesh.
Yeah. I think the appropriate response to like looking at our actions and our performance in this life would be from a state of almost kind of like, what are my actions like telling about where my heart state is? You know, like So if you are falling into a sin over and over again, or you're not quick to, love other people or love the least of these or do some of the things that Jesus listed out, I don't think it's unhealthy of us to go, why don't I want to love people? Or why am I falling into the sin over and over again? Because the trail of whys will lead back to our heart usually when we do that. And it will show us, something between me and Jesus right now relationally isn't right. Or maybe I just my image of who he is not really complete right now. And I want to also be careful when I say that too, because I think sometimes what we can do is turn that into its own work and go, well, I got to read my Bible more so I can have more of a complete image of Jesus, which is good, but the degree shift that's where that could be a bad thing is if it's from a motivation of knowledge acquiring versus going, I need to get close to him relationally so that he can change me in ways that I can't change myself and that I can be one with him relationally.
Right. The whole, again, the prenup thing, the checking the boxes. We'll do things from the outside, like I'm going to say a sinner's prayer. I'm going to get baptized. I'm going to do these things because they appear to give me some sort of security in that.
Yeah.
Where I think more than any of that, he would want us to just come to him and like in Psalm 139, God, check out my heart and show me what's in there. And I've even been doing this just as I've been walking and talking with him. What does it mean if I say I love you? What does that mean, God? And because I want to know you more and more, and how can I do that? And just to ask him those questions, rather than to wonder if you have these things. I think of the Hebrews 6 thing where he talks about all these really intimate, relational, experiential things that if you have all these things and then you fall away, there's no way you can come back.
Right.
But we are not of those people, which I would then say to me that if you have all those things, you're not falling away from him because you are in that relationship with him. And so just having,
because doesn't it say it's impossible for those who have experienced XYZ things to fall away and then return, as if it's like a hypothetical he's playing out. If you've experienced these things, there's no way you're going to fall away.
Yes. And as well as you follow him in relationship, the whole eternal security question never comes to mind because you're might say, well, it's easy for you to say, but if we start asking him those questions and just spending time with him in that conversation, he will so honor your pursuit of him. If you seek him, you will find him. If you seek him with all your heart, he promises finding. He's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. What's his reward? It's himself. And we get to have all those things, but because of our human way of thinking, we'll go through the Bible and find all the things we can check off to say, oh, I'm more sure now. I'm more sure now. I'm more, and then, oh, I can do this, and then I'll get away with it. But then when I do it, now I'm fearful that I'm not in the right place. And then when we get in, this is what we deal with when we're doing a lot of the freedom prayer. We do something that causes shame to come over us. And then we keep doing it because we're down there in the shame pit.
Right.
And then we think we're just lost because we're down in there, where in any real other relationship, that's not the way it happens.
Yeah.
And so the tight relationship also keeps you from getting down in the shame pit at all. You might brush up against it, but then he brings you back.
You know what analogy just came to mind that made me kind of laugh is the shame pit. Another way of thinking it is you ever seen a video of somebody that thinks that they're drowning, but they're in knee deep water?
Oh, right, yeah.
That's what it makes me think of.
We
think that when we've messed up, our road back to right standing with Jesus is this long path of good behavior. and we panic because we feel like we're drowning. We're like, I can't. I've messed up too bad. God doesn't love me. And Jesus is just like, just like you're fine.
Yeah.
Like just turn back to me, and you're good. There's no threat there. If I'm with you. And it kind of made me laugh because I'm like, of how ridiculous we are sometimes, thinking he's not good enough or he's not enough to just forgive us when we come to him.
Right.
Like his presence isn't enough. And it's just like that. It's just like the water's ankle deep even.
Yeah.
And
It's a perfect analogy too, because it is self-imposed at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it is contrary to reality as well, that we now get to walk in as Christians, where it's like we can stand up at any time with Jesus and go, okay, I don't need to drown anymore.
Yeah.
But we oddly sometimes choose to punish ourselves and drown in the water.
Just leave me here to die,
Jesus is
God.
like, come on. Like, and then we almost forget what the truth is, right? And we forget that it is ankle deep, and that we could stand up at any time, because Satan's like, like get in that fight or flight mode. You can't get out of this, you know? And I think that's why we need each other too, to catch ourselves when we're in those moments where we're like, hey, Jake.
Yeah.
stand
We
up.
do that in the freedom prayer when we're like, people will have something that's been hung over their head for 20 years, and we're like, just renounce it and ask God to forgive you, and then accept the forgiveness.
Right.
And that's like just grabbing a buddy and saying like, hey dude, like it's ankle deep, just stand up, you know, or they're like splashing around like, no, I'm going to die in here, you know.
What's so interesting as well, because this is my observation when I'm in on Sunday morning and we're worshiping, I look at these things, which maybe I should be worshiping, but each time a lyric comes up that talks about, and I ran out of the grave, or all these things, and everybody, ooh, but yet in these situations when they're panicking in the shallow water, they're not realizing what he did for you so that you can just stand up and walk out.
Exactly.
So at one end we celebrate, at the other end we don't embrace it at all. Yeah. And I got to think that's probably more than anything bums God out the most.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Stay down there.
Yep.
And I think that's why Jesus is constantly in the Gospels like, guys, we've been over this. Like, how much longer do I have to deal with you guys? Like, you're so dumb.
They didn't have the Holy Spirit living in them.
I like what Wes Huff says. They're not the disciples. They're the disciples. Like,
That's pretty good. Yeah.
It's corny. It's corny, but
you're a theologian, Wes.
He says it in like every single one of his interviews.
Yeah.
I think he's expecting big laughs every time.
Yeah.
But it's usually like, oh, ha, that's like a Bible college joke.
So I wanted to talk about my own suffering a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the spike. Is this what we're talking
about? The
stinger.
Well, mostly I want to say this because as I started to talk about it to Jake, he was going to tell me about another piece that I wanted to hear. So I said, well, wait on that because I want to hear it.
This is more of a staged bit.
Yeah.
But we never get into it. We saved it.
You never heard my thing.
We saved it.
Keep it fresh.
So on Friday, because I had friends coming over from Minnesota, my fifth grade pal, and his wife, they were high school sweeties, so I knew both of them.
Did they come here for you or to see
I wouldn't
Maine?
say that.
And then
No,
you're
they were just touring, doing a drive, and they had friends from Florida that have a little mountain house in New Hampshire, and then so they were close, and so they kind of came up. But I hadn't seen them for a while, a couple of years. Cool. And they're flaming Christians too, so it's fun.
That's beautiful
to do that. Interesting tidbit. So back in the day, and I've kind of told some of these before, that me and him and another friend we'd go back in the woods together, like sixth grade or so, and we'd find all these torn up tracts, and we'd all say, "Hey, your mom was here," and we'd have a good laugh mocking my mom.
Early mom jokes.
And now he says today, that is what started me on the road to faith.
Wow.
Even just knowing that. So it's always these steps. But anyhow, because they were coming, I was mowing the weeds in my yard because the grass isn't growing. And so I'm mowing, and all of a sudden, I feel like somebody's injecting hot metal into my forehead.
Wow,
and
that's beautiful.
What is going on? And so I smashed my head trying to figure out what's going on. All of a sudden, I got more under my armpit.
Yikes.
Bam! And now these ground hornets all of a
ground
sudden.
hornets are
Oh, gotcha.
I had to back up and I'd show the people it's still there. It's like over a week.
Ground
ago.
hornets are very aggressive.
It's
Very
nasty.
Ouch.
Doing that, and So anyhow, I didn't care for that. So
Not fun at all.
I did go out one night and shot down wasp and hornet stuff down the holes, but it didn't seem to stop them. They're coming up. So we're going to flood them tonight. We're just going to get rid of them. But anyhow, you were started to tell me something about...
So you said that, and then I said, well, did it make your arthritis go away?
Yeah.
And if there are people who are listening that have talked to me in the last month, I apologize because you've already heard this story.
Oh, man.
Because I feel like I've told it a bunch because I find it really fascinating.
Broken record.
Except for us.
Yeah, except for you guys. So, so my dad was down visiting a couple months ago, and he told me this story that I thought the whole time I thought it was a joke, and I was just waiting for him to tell me the punchline. But it wasn't a joke; it's a real story. So there's this woman who had contracted Lyme's disease, and it was really, really bad. She her body just started to fail her. She was going for treatments. None of the treatments were working, and it progressed so bad. She was barely mobile. She had so much pain, so much weakness, all this stuff. And she had done the treatments for years and had just kind of finally given up. And so what she decided to do was take basically one last trip. So she had always wanted to go to this place, and I think it was South America somewhere. She'd always wanted to visit, so she used up her money and decided to do the trip. So she goes and she's there visiting and kind of exploring and seeing different things. And one day she just goes out for a little walk. And this is where I thought that it was the joke. So this poor woman who's been dealing with this, her body's failing. She's on the death's door.
Is this true, by the way?
This is true.
Okay.
This is a true story. I'm embellishing it for this. Not embellishing it, but just.
But you were about to laugh at the poor woman.
So she's
stung.
on this walk and she trips over a rock
Yeah.
and she falls headlong into bushes.
Yeah.
And she lands on a bee's hive and just gets stung horribly by all these bees. I don't know how many. I didn't read.
You thought that was funny.
Well, I thought it was her misfortune is so bad. Right. You're this poor woman, but it was a true story. So she whatever country she's in, they rush to the hospital, and it takes a while. She was stung so badly, it took a while for her to recover from that. But then she recovers from the bee stings. But then her recovery kind of continues, and she's like, "Man, I feel pretty good." And then she kind of makes a full recovery, and she notices almost all of her symptoms, if not all of her symptoms of Lyme's, is gone. None of her joints hurt. She feels energy. She feels good. She's able to go and walk and exercise, and it continues. And so she's I've basically been healed from Lyme's disease. So I was that's so bizarre.
I feel a parable coming on.
I don't have a parable.
Well, I do.
So, so you really feel it coming on?
I feel it coming on, yeah.
So I found that really fascinating. I was talking with one of the youth leaders at one of the student events, and he was like, oh, yeah. And then he told me another story of these farmers in Honduras that's a known thing.
Is there a particular bee that I need?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
So then I go on Reddit and I'm looking, and apparently it's pretty well known. A lot of people with arthritis or whatever, they'll start keeping bees and just let the bees sting them periodically, and a lot of their arthritis goes away. One woman was talking about she
You're
has
not
chronic.
Prescribing this though right now.
No, because
is this medical
it might
advice,
be really
Jake?
dangerous.
Are we giving medical advice? I'm just curious.
So, but this one woman, she had chronic headaches, and she would see chiropractors and everything. She had headaches and back pain and everything. She started going and getting stung, and her headaches go away.
Do you have to get stung at the place that your malady is taking
No,
place? No.
what I believe, I have no medical science or data to back this up.
These are just stories, everybody.
These are stories. What I would assume is the case is that there's something in the venom, the bee's venom, that causes our body to secrete histamines and antihistamines and things like that are healing the problem in general. But it would have to be on a significant dose or a regular dose enough to make enough of it.
You'd think that there would be some scientific evidence as to what exactly your antihistamine thing would be.
But there might be. I just don't know about it.
Maybe they're doing trials.
Could you come more prepared next time?
I'll bring an update. I'll keep doing my research.
Who knows? Maybe someone in our listening audience knows more about this than we do. and can
Because I would
fill us in.
do that. I would expose my if I knew that was
for sure
cause and effect.
Yeah,
I would do that. Yeah, I'll go mow the lawn more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it might not be ground.
The hornets don't
Yeah.
work though. You have to
Yeah,
have European honeybees.
Well,
to
that's
do
why I
it.
asked. So that's part of the
I don't
research
know.
you have to do.
I'll come back,
Yeah.
and if there's anybody in the listening audience that knows,
Yeah.
It almost
Send
sounds
an
like
email.
a Spider-Man thing. Like you get bit by
Kind of.
a radioactive spider, and then you get really strong and have superpowers.
Well, I told this story to Jordan, and she's like, or Jordan and Jordan's mom, and they said, well, that makes sense. Even think of all the really healthy properties of honey. Like honey's coming out. There's a lot of data
True.
out now that we're like honey can cure colds, or it's really, really good for you. It's good for your joints, all this stuff. I wonder if there's something to that too.
And they say our ecosystem would completely collapse if it wasn't for the bees and the pollination they do. So maybe
they've been disappearing.
they are God's creature.
Yeah.
They're
I
God's.
think the demons are killing the bees.
What
the demons are killing.
So
They're killing the bees. Thanks, Alex.
We just turned into like a Alex Jones type of thing.
So what's the parable then?
What's your
the parable of God stinging us and therefore something right through suffering?
Wow.
Through suffering, we become whole. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like the cross.
yeah.
That's beautiful.
Jesus was stung on our behalf.
Well, and we have to pick up our cross and follow Him. Mm-hmm. So we have to get stung.
Consider
to
it
get
pure
healed.
joy, brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds.
Yeah, yeah.
For it's for the testing and what is it, maturing of your faith? I can't remember the rest.
So you're prescribing running into suffering so you can feel good.
Yeah, asceticism.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
just that we should.
Yeah,
Yeah. Stinger cells.
Yeah.
That probably wouldn't work,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
No, but we shouldn't run from suffering.
No,
Not run to it, not run from it. Yeah, embrace it, I guess, in some ways. Mm-hmm. That's hard to do, though.
we're pretty far
And
from
not
suffering.
complain.
What kind of suffering would we have experienced in South Portland, Maine here that you think would mirror what they're talking about in the Bible there?
We view.
I think a
people
lot of medical
disagreeing with
issues
us
that
Yeah.
people
as,
have with suffering.
as persecution.
I think that's
Yeah.
about the max.
Like
we have
remember
right now, right?
I think it was last fall when we were talking about the it was all around the political charged conversations, but they were talking about like Thanksgiving dinner, not inviting people that like voted differently or
Oh,
whatever.
right, yeah.
I think that's a similar thing we view. Like
That's our
if
ceiling, is
yeah,
right
if,
there, yeah.
if people were around the dinner table and they were like
Right.
more animated about their disagreement with us and our Christianity, that would be persecution.
Yeah, feel a wound. Yeah.
Definitely not as bad as it could be. I think that's agreed
I
upon.
think that's safe. I think that's safe to say.
I think we're pretty privileged.
Yeah.
But I also, there are people out there who, and we see them on our prayer list here at the church, who have really challenging home lives where
yeah.
they're in situations that are really abusive or toxic, or people have really unfortunate medical situations going on, or sometimes people run into tragedies as well, where they lose loved ones in car accidents or different things like that. And I think those are sufferings of the fallen, chaotic world we live in that sometimes we
So there's
deal with.
there's a spectrum then. Okay. So when Peter, I think it's Peter, talks about suffering, and he makes the point, but not suffering because of some stupid thing you did, right? Essentially, Kurt's paraphrase.
Right.
He talks about that.
Dealing with the consequence of your actions is
Yeah.
not suffering
Yes.
or
Right.
not persecution.
Right. So you have, as Jesus says, suffer persecution for righteousness' sake in the Beatitudes. But then, even if we have difficulties in life that aren't a result of our own actions, but we take them in under His umbrella, we could say that is suffering that will help refine us and bring us closer to Him. So even like the woman going through her Lyme disease thing, if she gave herself over to Jesus, gave Him praise, gave Him thanks, and all of those things, put Him up first in her relationship, you could start to put that in the same situation as some of the Christians in Syria right now who are getting beheaded.
Right.
Which
I think so.
Sounds,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
sounds pretty
Well,
radical.
that's the insane thing about suffering is by nature. So you have pain, which is just pain is, I think, pretty objective, right? Oftentimes you could make an argument that it's not. It's a physical thing that you endure. Suffering is so elusive because suffering is a product of our mind.
So the 4 murder hornets that stung me.
That's pain.
Yeah, I went through that.
Yeah. And then the suffering is any amount of fear that you impose on yourself after that, or wallowing about your situation that, oh man, I had to go through this. And it's a weird thing. You could almost, and I don't want to say that it is, but you could almost say that suffering is kind of a choice that we can choose at times. And I don't want to say all of it is, because I think there's a lot of pain that people go through that is apart from our choice. But then I think if we're honest with ourselves, there's a lot of suffering that we just allow ourselves to wallow in and endure, that Jesus can easily just say, hey, I can take that for you.
Yep.
And I have taken that for you. Kind of going back to the drowning analogy, that we just go, yeah, but I don't know. We can almost get like intoxicated on our own victimization.
No, I know what you mean. I think an easy correlation that would like talk about what you're talking about is like the unforgiveness piece. We talk to people all the time that have experienced like pretty traumatic things.
Yeah.
That's the pain initially. But then some of these people are suffering 30 years later because of that trauma.
Yeah.
And the person's been out of their life for 30 years. It's not like they're ongoing the trauma. They're suffering because of the damage that was done initially.
Right.
Some of that is pretty understandable depending on what happened.
Oh, 100%.
But then there's sometimes where we embrace bitterness and unforgiveness, and then we put ourselves into a suffering situation because of that, when we have the choice with Jesus and the Holy Spirit to release and forgive them and let go of it and unhook ourselves. And then though the trauma happened and though there was a lot of pain there, the ongoing suffering ends, which is really a cool deal that Jesus offers that to us. Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
we're ready.
Anything
to roll,
else?
huh?
Yeah.
No.
Well, hey guys, thanks for joining us. The time flies when you're having fun. Hopefully you had fun. Hopefully this was a insightful and beneficial time for you.
But don't just go stinging yourself with bees because of Jake's story.
But you could.
I don't want to hear
get
people
back
saying,
to us.
I stung myself with a bee, and then they're coming back around to us and they're giving us a hard time.
And if you didn't like it at all, don't look at it from a human point of view.
That's right. That's right. Look at it with heavenly eyes. So have a great week. We hope to hear from you, and we'll see you next time.